Okay, welcome to our channel once again. Today I'm having to cut short of the videos that I'm making currently on Brexit and migration issues. Just to address this issue of the appreciation of the cedi. This has been a recent talk in Ghana and also in the diaspora here in the UK about how the city is appreciating and the views of obviously Ghanaians and friends of Ghana and anyone that is has any sort of business interest in Ghana, what their thoughts are on this matter. What actually inspired me to basically cut across to do this video is I was having a chat with a family member that does business in Ghana, and obviously they were unhappy about the fact that this city is appreciating and therefore they are getting less for their foreign currency in Ghana. That is mainly dollars and sterling. Um, but to share some light on this whole concept of what is actually happening is a change of government from the Akufo-Addo government of friends and family that borrowed so much money, obviously spearheaded by Ken Ofori-Atta, the then finance minister, who was borrowing so much money because his data bank was the administrative bank for the borrowing, and therefore the more he borrowed, the more money he borrowed for Ghana, the more money he made for his bank. The problem was when you borrow this money and you don't use it for any productive activity and just use it to build luxury apartments in Accra and showing them off. These are not things of productive activity that really creates employment and help the economy grow. And so when you have these monies coming in and these monies are not used for productive activities, it becomes inflationary. And therefore, when this inflation really kicks off, it then affects the currency exchange. Because the currency exchange, what it really is a reflection of the value of a particular nation against other nations. And so you probably notice why the dollar was made the base currency, because in those days, America was the strongest economy in the world with economic stability and protection for people's monies that they had invested in the state. And therefore, the dollar became the base currency for the world. So everyone that is doing any trade anywhere else in the world will use the dollar as the base currency of exchange. Now, we are looking at what has caused this shift where the cedi begins to appreciate. There has been a few videos circulating. One video that I have found quite interesting is the one by KSM on this particular subject. There are many other videos going around. For example, one that was made by what's the guy's name, Afunya Markin, and also one by this chap, what's his name, Kennedy Japan. So Kennedy Japan was giving a lecture about this currency appreciation in a university in somewhere in Cape Coast, and his what he was telling the students was the fact that because of the issues with the American economy, with obviously the tariffs from Donald Trump making America unpopular and therefore people demanding less of the dollar, this has made the dollar basically become cheaper and therefore causing the cedi to appreciate against it, and that there isn't anything that the Mahama administration have done as such to basically to cause this trend or a shift in the currency of Ghana. But obviously, this is not true. The city is appreciating because the new government, being the Mahama government, have put in place various policies. For example, one being the setup of the Ghana Gold Board, which is currently being spearheaded by Sami Jemfi, basically centralizing all gold trading activities through this board, just a bit like the Cocoa Board. And obviously he's begun to invest in agriculture. He's also reduced the size of the state, obviously all these ministerial offices and how much it was costing the nation. He's cut down on these things, and therefore, and also there is also the issue of them clamping down on dollarization. I say dollarization being the fact that people were actually spending dollars in Ghana rather than cedis. And so these are the policies that he has put in place, which is beginning to yield some benefits, i.e., causing the city to appreciate in value. And so the talk by Kennedy Japan is untrue. Then we also have another lecture that was given by the former Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, who has also said that the Mahama government has not done anything. There is no policy, that these things are just happening because of, once again, global economic situation, that nothing has been done. That is also untrue. We will recall that when he took power, obviously under the Akufo-Addo government from 2016 to 2024, at that time he picked the cedi up from 7 cedis to $1. And there was some sort of appreciation at the very beginning when people thought that they claimed to be the intellectuals. The Akufo-Addo government at the beginning were having a lot of talk, and he obviously he gives very good speeches, so people started believing in the Ghanaian economy. So there was some sort of a city appreciation, and therefore Dr. Bahomadu Bahumia made a statement that the dollar had been arrested and put in jail, and that the key had been given to the IGP. But we soon realized that such statements were not true, because by the time they left power, the cedi had depreciated to 17 cedis to the dollar. Now, just to give you a perspective on the seriousness of this level of depreciation, we can do that by going back maybe historically to look at the birth of the new Ghana cedi. So this new Ghana cedi came into effect in the time of President John Ejekun Kufuor, when he took over from the NDC administration, which was headed by the then President John Jerry Rawlings. So Rawlings had been in power for over 21 years in Ghana, and obviously ended with the NDC administration. But when they finished their service, there was no money in the Ghana coffers. And therefore, when John Ejekun Kufuor came to power, he had to try to raise some money from the IMF and the World Bank, and therefore he had to declare Ghana epic, being the heavily indebted nations. So Ghana was in effect bankrupt. And as part of the conditions of the IMF, we were then requested to revalue the Ghanaian currency. By so doing, John Ejekun Kufuor then removed 4 zeros from the then cedi, which was changing at 10,000 cedis to $1 at the time. So what he did is that, in effect, when he did the revaluation, the old 10,000 cedis was then equal to the new Ghana cedi, then equal to $1. People thought this was such a great idea, and that they thought, oh, now it's 1 cedi to $1. So everyone was really excited. But in reality, that was very detrimental to the Ghanaian economy. And I say that for this reason. When you have, for example, the old CD, which was changing from 10,000 to $1, assuming that the currency moved, obviously depreciated further to about 15,000 or 20,000 to a dollar, that would have led to a public outcry because that is a huge devaluation. But the thing is that when you obviously do the revaluation, where a situation whereby now the new one CD, which is equivalent to 10,000 cedis, is then equal to $1. If the depreciation moves on and it becomes 2 to 1, in effect, is the old 20,000 cedis, which is equal to the new 2 cedis, which is equal to $1. And so when you look at it from that perspective, the devaluation doesn't seem that much. But to show you how bad the situation had become with the 8 years of Akufo-Addo's administration, when they left, the cedi was running round about 17 new cedi to a dollar, which actually means that it was equal to 170,000 old cedi to $1. Now, that type of a currency depreciation is basically is crazy. And this is because the monies that they borrowed, they literally doubled Akufo-Addo on his own through his finance minister Ken Ofori-Atta, actually doubled Ghana's external borrowing. That is from Kwame Nkrumah to the end of Mahama's administration. Akufo-Addo was able to more than double the borrowing in his 8 years of administration. Borrowing in itself is not a bad thing if it's actually used for productive activities. So, for example, if you borrow to invest in farming, to invest in extensive road network, i.e., say roads from Accra to Bolgatanga, Accra to Sunyane, and maybe Kumasi to Bolgatanga, Kumasi, to create that network to enhance communication. And even if you put sort of reasonable tolls on these roads, which then yields some return, or if you engage in extensive building projects whereby you basically rent these building or these houses you build to public servants like the police, like the army, like the teachers, like the nurses, then they will basically pay rent back into the state. So this could be like a state housing project whereby they pay the rent and then that money then starts to yield some returns. If you invest in something like, let's say, solar paneling on an extensive basis, or just improve hydroelectric power, then obviously this helps the economy to grow. Invest in farming and you can create jobs and food production. And so you find that when Akufo-Addo borrowed these monies, he didn't put the monies into these things. They basically shared it amongst themselves. We have evidence where a minister of the Akufo-Addo government, they found an amount of $1 million in her house, and the president had to pardon this person. And so when you see that £1 million is like $1 million, sorry, is sitting in a minister's house, that minister should go to prison. That is basically abusing the position of state, and the responsibilities that has been given to this minister, and that their assets should have been confiscated and this money used for productive activity. So because these borrowing were not used for any productive activity, it becomes inflationary and it continues to depreciate, because you create a situation where the external bodies are looking at Ghana being a very wasteful economy. So, for example, Akufo-Addo, after borrowing all that money, basically created an additional region, probably a few regions. It wasn't just an additional region, probably another 3 or 4 regions he created, and created so many ministerial offices. And this becomes a cost on the state, these offices that he created are not productive in any way, i.e., they are not bringing in any money to the state. And so this wasteful activity was so extensive that it created so much domestic inflation and therefore devalued the cedi against the dollar, or and also against the sterling. And so these are the reasons why the economy had almost collapsed, and Ghana was given a junk status in the international financial systems. And so then we have things like the Ejapa deal and the Ejapa document. These are all damaging endeavors by the Akufo-Addo government. It's treasonable, basically, against the nation of Ghana. And so Ghanaians voted overwhelmingly for the Mahama government to come to correct all these things, and also to basically bring people to account. These Akufo-Addo ministers and friends and family that he had used to capture state and rule the country from his little family, being some of the names being Bamti, Gabi Ochredakun, Asante Bedietu, Osafo Mafu Jr. and Senior, and a whole host of his clan, and claiming that they were the wisest people in Ghana. Then also he put in 9 Supreme Court judges to replace the outgoing judges. All this being a state capture, capturing the media, capturing so many institutions in Ghana, such that when they left, they felt that they wanted to rule Ghana, even if they were not in power, by basically capturing the judicial services, and replacing them with their own people. And so Ghanaians watch all these things, but eventually the vote went overwhelmingly for Mahama. And so Mahama came, really, he is trying to follow due process, but he doesn't have as much time. Mahama has only got 4 more years, so he doesn't have as much time. So in order to bring accountability and probity to recover this oral operation, recover all loots, which was here spearheaded by Ablokwa Okujato, this project, they should set up a special tribunal, ideally, to process, people that have taken advantage of their official positions to loot unreasonably from the state of Ghana. They need to have a tribunal rather than going through the normal court processes, which obviously, as we know, Akufo-Addo has put his judges, 9 Supreme Court judges, at the highest court of the land with his people, such that you couldn't really have a situation of impartiality with the judiciary service. And so special tribunals are what is needed to call these people in question, to question them. So for example, we hear in this past few days that this guy, Chairman Untumi, has been arrested. And therefore he was also involved in a lot of galamsey and just going into state lands, state forestry lands, and just going in there, mining, destroying water bodies, destroying lands. He has been called in to come and answer questions. But as Mahama came in, he set up the Ghana Gold Board, which is Pusame Jemfi at the helm, to basically unify all gold trading activities within Ghana. And this type of a measure really does help Ghana to build its own gold reserves. Then we look at something like the dollarization, which once again he is clamping down on. Many years ago, under Atamels's administration, Dr. Dofo was then the finance minister. And for him to once again recover the position of the cedi, he actually clamped down on the forex bureaus, the activities of the forex bureaus, and also was also working on the same aspect of stopping dollarization. Dollarization, I term it as a situation where a country leaves its own currency to spend the dollars, and almost the dollar becomes the base basically becomes the currency that is used in that land for major transactions. Just to make it very clear, when you're in Britain, in this country, we spend the currency for transactions is sterling. So you cannot come into the UK and start trading or dealing in dollars. You have to change your dollars to sterling. And by so doing, the government of basically the governor of bank, the Bank of England, will soon mop up all those foreign currency and use that currency for obviously national things that are needed for the state. If the state needs some dollars, then they could use that dollars to do whatever they need to use it for. In the same way, if you go to America, you cannot expect to be there and to be using Cedis. You have to use your cedi to buy dollars and spend dollars in America. And so why should that be any different in Ghana? If you go to Ghana for whatever the reason, whether it's for pleasure or for business, the currency that you bring in, be it sterling or dollar, you must use that to purchase the cedis. And then you use the cedis, you spend the cedis in Ghana. So by so doing, the government or the Bank of Ghana will be able to accumulate all the foreign currencies that comes in, i.e. the dollar, the sterling, the Japanese yen, whatever currency comes in, the euro, then they will use that to build their own currency reserves. And so when they do that, all these are measures when put in place does help for the local currency to appreciate, because the irresponsible government of Akufo-Addo, the external world will see somebody who has come that is making that effort to correct all the mess. So, for example, we hear there's a chap at Force, and he's now in Bank of Ghana, being the head, and he's putting in these measures. The previous administration, which was Dr. Addison, whatever his name is, he in 2023, around about October-ish, the Bank of Ghana annual report had made a financial loss of 60 billion new Ghana cedi, which was equivalent to 4.5 billion pounds. The bank lost that kind of money. It was unaccounted for. So these are the type of irresponsible activities that goes on domestically that creates a very negative view of the nation and therefore its currency. Because if the Americans and the British and many and the Europeans don't actually respect that the Ghana economy is being managed properly, they will not be willing for their currency to be matched with the cedis in any way. Or even if they do, they want to buy the cedis very cheap because they know it's an economy that is not well managed. So when you see Mahama coming in, setting up the Ghana Gold Board, and also clamping down on dollarization, making that effort to collect, mop up all the foreign currency that comes into the forex bureaus, and also stopping the fact that when you transfer your dollars or your sterling into Ghana or into a bank accounts in Ghana in foreign currency, when you get to Ghana, you have to take your money in cedis at the rate, at the bank's exchange rate. This is the way that it's supposed to be, so that when you go into Ghana, you are actually spending cedis rather than spending dollars and sterling to do your transaction. So by him doing this type of measures, once again, it encourages the cedi to regain its ground. Now, people are getting excited because currently, as it stands, the cedi is changing to about 12 new Ghana cedi to $1, which in effect is the old 120,000 cedis to $1. This is nothing to get excited about. even though it is commendable to the Mahama administration in what they are doing, but there is no need to be excited about anything, because before, when Kufuor done it in there about 2004 to 2008, it was one new Ghana cedi to $1. So if it's come down from 17 to 12, we must continue, or Mahama must continue to do whatever it is that he is doing to bring this down even a lot further, so that at some stage, if it comes to, let's say, even five new Ghana cedi to $1, then these could be levels that people can maybe start celebrating that something good is happening. But we commend Mahama's administration in this short space of time that he could come to obviously put these measures in place. He is also investing in agriculture. So we hear less and less of Galamsey, because once again, the Galamsey, when it was being done at that level, where Ghanaians were losing their lands to the Chinese that are in Ghana, doing this illegal mining, attacking farmers. And this attack was supported by the Ghana army and Akufo-Addo's administration. And when they did this mining, they destroyed the land, and they put, these pipes in the major rivers like River Ankobra, River Pra, River Uti, and all these rivers. The only river that we probably know that maybe nothing really happened to it is the Volta River. Damaging all these rivers, destroying livelihoods, destroying the fish that these rivers produce, producing drinking water for Ghanaians. All these were damaged, and the world saw it when the rivers were shown to the world as they were like chocolate rivers. And this type of thing was very bad. So we are hearing less of Galamsey under President Mahama. So he's doing the right thing. Now what we are hearing is farming, state farming. And the young Ghanaians are being encouraged to farm to improve food production. But what we like to probably see more of is to maybe engage in building better roads, an extensive road network system to tap, as people are farming, to reach these areas, rural areas, to be able to bring in this food production into the city. Ghana must feed itself, because we hear, under the Akufo-Addo administration, when people were complaining about how bad things had become, he was blaming COVID, even though Ghana made a lot of money from COVID. All the monies that he was taking for Ghanaians coming in, this $150, is unaccounted for. And obviously the international bodies also gave Ghana a lot of money to support them with COVID. All that money is unaccounted for. And so Mahama is coming, doing food production and stopping Galamsey, and recovering the land, and restoring the water bodies. There's a lot of work involved, but he has been given the mandate to do so. But accountability and probity is something that maybe Ghanaians want to see a lot of it. And in the time that Mahama is got, these things cannot be done through the normal court processes, which takes very many years. Tribunals is what you need. It's not like people are saying that people should go witch hunting people, but you need a faster process, because this is to do with the state. This is not normal litigation. This is to do with the state. So if I was wrong, you call me in, find out 8 years ago what was my asset declaration, because any minister that took position, not just the minister, their immediate family, all these people need to be vetted to find out what was their financial position or financial declaration when they took the ministerial offices. And in 8 years later, what is their acquisition? What have they acquired? What was their income? And how were they able to acquire these things? They should be called in for questioning. When we have somebody like Chairman Untumi, who has been called, he has caused extensive damage to state, i.e. destroying lands for gold mining. So he can be called in definitely for questioning. And there were times that he sat on TV, displaying gold bar, talking about having about 69 building about 69 properties in Kumasi, having about 100 properties that he had purchased. All these things he can be called in for questioning and vetting. They've done that, and some people are not happy about this. And so, it is rightful that these Ghanaians should leave the president to do his work, to bring people to account where they have wronged the state. So, in effect, the Operation Recover All Loot, this is a project that obviously should be really pushed ahead, and it should be a daily thing that, the nation should be talking about. And people should be brought to account. Anyone that have abused their position in state, looting state assets, should be brought to account. This is how you basically recover resources that they have taken illegally from the state. You recover all those resources, confiscate, their assets, strip them of their bank accounts, and bring them to account as a way of recovering all the losses that the state have experienced in the past 8 years under the Akufo-Addo NPP administration. I mean, there are a lot of people that are sort of NPP naturally by origin, but a lot of them have deserted NPP based on the way that Akufo-Addo promised Ghana, and in effect what he actually did against that nation, lying and bringing in this JSS project and SSS project, free SHS, as a way of basically camouflaging all the extensive borrowing that he did. And so, once these things are put in place, as I said, some of the projects have been the Ghana Gold Board, and basically clamping down on dollarization, and also mopping up all the foreign currencies that comes into Ghana to build state reserves, both in gold and in foreign currency. And these type of activities, also investing in agriculture, can boost food production, and building extensive road network. So there's quite a lot for President Mahama to do, but he's actually taking the right steps. And also Operation Recover All Loots, the ORA project, it should be done and made effective. And all these combined activities, it gives a positive image to Ghana, and how foreign people or foreign actors will see Ghana, and therefore it creates value for the nation and creates value for its currency. But for those that are thinking the appreciation of the cedi is such a bad thing for their own selfish interest, so there are probably, we here, maybe they're probably not Americans, but they're like Ghanaians that are based in America that are coming in. Some people are business people that come in with their dollars and seek to get so much for it. As KSM said, no more. Those things are, or those times are over. When you see a minister having $1 million in their home, hiding that in their home, and obviously with the cedi depreciating, they can use this dollar to buy the cedis and do their activities in Ghana. Those days are over. So now the economy is going to be managed properly, and for the cedi to recover its position. And so at the moment, as it stands to 12 cedi to $1, it's still not. It's great that Mahama is taking the right steps to get the cedi in that sort of direction, but there's a long way off. There is still more room for improvement. If it reaches something like 5 cedis to $1, or even 3 cedis to $1, then we are getting closer to the 1-to-1, which was done by Kufuor. That will demonstrate that the nation is doing the right thing. And so those with that selfish interest must really adjust their thinking. They should be thinking for the good management of that nation and an improvement in the standard of living of that nation. Because when you have Ghana doing well, you are going to have less people wanting to travel to come to, say, the UK and go to America and go to these countries to build immigration figures. Because in Britain, as we are today, you know, migrants, it's a big thing with migrants that nobody wants to see migrants coming into Britain, going into America. And so if the nation Ghana is built well, then it actually restricts, or it naturally stops the desire of people wanting to move from that nation. If their nation is good, they will stay, they will live in their own nation and build their own nation. And so with that sort of level of political maturity, Ghana is definitely taking the right steps. But we see today that in reality is leadership. Leadership has been the problem, because we've seen what Akufo-Addo has done. It is an absolute, the worst ever administration ever in the nation of Ghana. And then we see Atta Mills did a great job. Kufuor was kind of okay, lots of stability, gave Ghana a lot of image. But at the same time, when he left the Ghana at 50, he had done the revaluation, but then spent a lot of money. So when he left, the CD was about four cedis to $1, which was the old 40,000 cedis to $1. So when you look at it that way, then you see how the economy wasn't so great. It was good, but it wasn't so great. But Atta Mills was the one that started to do the right thing. But now that we see that Mahama has had time to sit behind and sort of gotten a better picture of what he is coming to do, he is definitely out there to build a legacy for himself, to be counted amongst the great and good, like the likes of Nkrumah, Echampo, and these leaders that have done great things for Ghana. Mahama is definitely setting himself up to be one of them. And so in 4 years, he has a lot of work to do, and surely he's moving in the right direction. And so what we say is that if you think that he's doing the wrong thing, or if you think that the points that I'm raising in this video is wrong, then I want to hear from you. Put your views in the comments. If you are a Ghanaian in the diaspora, put your views in the comments. If you are a foreign person but a friend of Ghana and doing business in Ghana, you may be a British, Caucasian, British man, or an American, and you're doing business in Ghana, and you think that the views that are raised here are not great for one reason or the other. We're definitely happy to hear your alternative opinion in this matter. So definitely put your views in the comments. And if you've had any bad experiences, because we know that under the Akufo-Addo government, a lot of people also invested in Ghana. Or, with this talk about, Ghana is not going to depend on aid, Ghana is not going to borrow any money, Ghana can raise its own money. Yes, they did raise a lot of money. People came into Ghana putting in their money there, but ultimately they said, even government bonds, they couldn't pay. Treasury bills, they couldn't pay. People's pensions, it was deferred, and so there is a lot for the Mahama administration to pick up and to correct, because under no circumstances should the state of Ghana default on investors that have invested in government bonds and treasury bills. And so Mahama's administration have a lot to do, and the media, which we also know were also captured by the Akufo-Addo government, NPP government, because he put a lot of money in the media to be disruptive in this change of government. We are asking the media to be responsible. They should be responsible. They should put Ghana above party. Ghana first, to help that nation, Ghana, to develop. I think that if it develops, or even if all these African countries develop properly, then surely the issues of migration into the Western world will also diminish or be cut down. And then therefore the people over here obviously can rest, can sleep and rest, knowing that they're probably not going to be flooded by other people from other country. I know that the UK migration thing, obviously I'm doing videos on Brexit. It's a very complicated issue. It's not something like just Africans coming in. There are people, a lot of people coming in from the Asian countries into the UK at the moment. I think if you do analyze the migration data, you find that a great deal of the people that have come in recently since the COVID period are probably from Asia. And so, you know, but all in all, if all nations are doing well, then surely migration will be cut down. We see at the moment democracy also having a big problem, because as it's catching on, now people are not believing in democracy. So you see the likes of Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and all these places having these coup d'etats, and Guinea, and having military leadership, whereby they stop all these elections and people can go and work and just leave these military rulers to rule these nations. And so, you know, Ghana, which by God's grace, all the stuff that Akufo-Addo did, Ghana did not fall into any sort of military attack or military dictatorship, that we should be very thankful and commend Ghanaians for their patience in just sticking with the democratic processes. But Mahama indeed does have an opportunity to restore that dignity of democracy and allow the law to work. But he should be allowed to do his work, and tribunals are the ways to bring in accountability and probity. And so, yes, these are my own views from the information that I have gathered. You may choose to agree or disagree with me. That is fine. It's a learning curve, a learning platform. We want you to bring in your own views and your comments. Put it in the comment section. Say what you think. And so we may all learn something from these things. But to end this video, we just commend the new Mahama government, that Ghanaians have put that trust in him to do a good job, to basically bring in accountability and probity for the time that he has, so that it will create an opportunity for the NDC once again to continue his work when he leaves in 4 years. You know, you look at countries like Rwanda, where Paul Kagame has been there since 1994. They have their elections once every 7 years. I think this could be a good thing for Ghana. You know, you having elections once every 7 years, so that there is stability, political stability, because you give them 4 years. You know, they come in, obviously, probably 2 years to the time when, you know, elections are won. There's so much waste, because, you know, the governments will borrow money from external sources, give the money to people so that they can vote for them. And people don't work. People spend a great deal of time campaigning. Campaigning takes a whole year. It's not a productive activity. So once the government comes into power, inflation kicks in, because there's a lot of money that they floating about. But meanwhile, nobody did any productive activity. There's food shortages Everything has to be imported, and so inflation kicks in, and then the economy starts to struggle. And they said, oh, give us time to select our ministers. And then, it takes them about 2 years to select ministers, and then they'll be traveling around the world trying to borrow money, trying to sell the nation to borrow money. And then when they borrow that money, they probably now head into the third year. And in the third year, they said, oh, we've got to wait another 4 years. The first 4 years is not enough. We need another 4 years. And so the monies that they borrow, they don't even use it for productive activity. They share the money once again and then campaign, greasing the media, greasing the judges, greasing the churches as well, charismatic churches, bribing the leaders to get the votes for second term. They say, oh, the first term is not enough. This is what the Akufo-Addo administration they did. And they said, give us another 4 years. The moment they come in the second term, once again, nobody has done any economic activity, i.e. food production or anything like that. So inflation once again kicks in again. By the time they are trying to find solutions, maybe for in the second term, the next year, edging into the third year, they realize that they are not able to sustain the situation. And so what do? They say, oh, by the end of this 4 years, we will be gone. We are not going to have any chance. So what do? We steal states' money. And they all start to, bank all the money, steal all the money. So by the time the election goes, the economy is so bad, the next government comes in, there is no money. And they have to go back to the IMF. So you've had this vicious cycle repeating for so long. And Einstein is the one that said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over and thinking you're going to get a different result. You are not. And so this is why, even if they should adopt that 7-year system in Rwanda, you come in 7 years, that's a long enough time. People can just go and work, farming, doing building, doing technical things. Basically, the education system should be changed and should be geared towards, providing providing the needs of the people. So if the nation needs builders, then the technical schools should be training people how to build. If they need to mine, then they need to teach them how to mine. If they need farming, then it needs to be taught in schools. If people don't know how to manage money, then money management. So the education should be practical. If it's technology, producing technological activities or doing tech things, then the education should be, geared towards that with these respective paths, and the government should be investing in the ones that they think is a priority. And so this is the only way that these African nations, obviously including Ghana, can do to change their situation, to improve, so that they can retain their labor in their own nations. And the government should be very strict on, when people work for people and they just default. People work for people and they don't want to pay them. All these things, the government can look into it to ensure that they don't happen. That when people work for you, you pay them. Because if you don't pay them, then they start stealing. And so, a lot of Ghanaian businessmen are saying, oh, don't do that business in Ghana because they are indeed going to steal from you. Because if you don't pay them on time, they will do that. And so, there's a whole lot going on. But, this Mahama administration is definitely, they've got the right people. It's not a government for friends and family. It's a government that basically collects. It's a collective government from all the regions of Ghana. Everybody coming in and playing a role in the government, and an inclusive government. I don't mean an inclusive in that respect, but inclusive as in bringing all the people from all the various regions together to rule, basically bringing the best minds together, and obviously make it diversifying it, because every region must feel a part of Mahama's government. So he's doing a great job, and we surely commend him for that. But the CD has a long way to go. So we shouldn't get too excited about it, but to stay focused and just support him to do all the right things. So this is my own explanation, that the appreciation of the city is because of those respective policies, i.e. the gold board, helping with the gold reserves, and also food production, helping with the reduction of inflation, clamping down on dollarization, i.e., not allowing, making it, basically, you need to make it illegal for anybody to use dollar or sterling to do transactions in Ghana. They must always change to the Ghanaian currency, which is the Cedis, to do their business. And just doing all the right things to encourage people to come into Ghana. Also, Operation Recover or Loot, basically bringing to the previous administration and all the wicked things that they did to account. Operation Recover or Loot, that's a great thing. Also, reducing the ministerial offices, cutting down waste is also another great way to basically help in building a confidence in the nation of Ghana, which then builds confidence in its currency. Then, this extensive feeding Ghana. Ghanaians must feed Ghana. Akufo-Addo was saying, oh, because of Ukraine. I mean, Ukraine is so far away. Ghana has fertile lands. We know that there are some issues with the World Trade Organization, something that I learned in my international human rights law studies about the World Trade Organization and the restrictions that it imposes on developing countries, and also creating a system where a country like China could come and dump goods on Ghana. All these type of things, the Mahama administration can look into it and basically make a case against sectors so that they are dealt with favorably in the World Trade Organization. The WHO as well is another issue. Um, that all these details needs to be looked at, to ensure that the right things are being done, to just bring some dignity to democracy. Because indeed, if one is to make a video on democracy, it's not looking good. Not looking good. But at the same time, it's the best form of governance, in the best form of governance ever known in the world, if it's done properly. That is, if it's done in such a way that you have independence of the judiciary, independence of the executive, independence of the media, the Bank of Ghana being independent, and so many other independent institutions coming together to act as check and balances on each other, and a situation where a president can be impeached if they act in a way that is not in the interest of the nation. If you have these things in place, then democracy indeed works. Other than that, then the situation in Burkina Faso is the one that is going to become popular amongst African nations. And so we commend John Dramani Mahama, President, to do a good job to restore some democracy and dignity. And all these clubs that brings this collusion. So we have judges and doctors and politicians and lawyers, and they are all in one club. This is where the problem is, because if they are all in one club, when one does something wrong, the other cannot correct them. And so all these things should be disbanded. They should basically ban ban these type of clubs and institutions so that so that you are not getting this collusion, which then creates a problem for the nation. Thank you for watching this video. I look forward to hearing your comments and your contributions. But obviously, in our next video, we are back to the issues of Brexit and the things that the UK government is doing with the head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, in bringing some um, improving relations, trade between the EU and the UK. So we're going to be back on that, and also back on analyzing migration, UK migration, because in recent times, I think not very long ago, sometime last week, there was that talk that the UK migration has been halved, basically for 2024-2025. The figures indicate that the 728,000 net migration figure has been halved. It will be great to do that video to analyze how that has happened. But thank you once again for watching this video. Until our next video, have a good night.